Welcome to After the Bell with your host, Lauren Cranmer. This is a podcast for cancer thrivers. I am really excited to get this first episode out there because we are talking to Molly, who has some really amazing insight, and she just actually finished radiation, and she is quite literally starting life after the bell. Now, Molly is a wife, she's a mom of two, and she's a BJJ Brown Belt, but she was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer and went on to get treated with curative intent. Now, we had some issues with our audio when recording, so the sound may be a little bit low quality, but I will assure you that the content of the video is high quality. With that being said, here is Molly. We are here, guys, with Molly Jiminez. Tell us a little bit about who you are as a person just outside of the whole breast cancer world.
Grew up as in the construction field. My dad put me on a framing crew when I was 13. And so I am familiar with just like hard physical things from a pretty young age. My mom is a very strong woman. She's also a cancer survivor. I've seen like what it's like to go through some of the worst experiences. She's actually a leukemia survivor and bone marrow transplant. So, and then my dad is also a cancer survivor, and
Oh my
niece is a
gosh.
cancer survivor. So we have a lot of cancer in my family. So yeah, I've been through my fair share of hard things. I've been training jiu-jitsu for a while. I have 2 kids, almost 3 and 11. I've been through a divorce. I've just, done hard things before this. I feel like I was prepared to go through some of these things that I went through this last year. But yeah,
You've been through the ringer
now. My last radiation 2 days ago, so I'm done with active treatment. I'm kind of in this weird like post-treatment survival phase, I guess.
That is something that I feel like not a lot of people talk about. The like after treatment ends and you're kind of just in this limbo of you just finished active cancer. Everybody's like, oh yeah, you're done. Like that's amazing. But then you're kind of left with this like heaviness of like what's to come. Like just it's a whole new world. I honestly feel like that is the hardest part. it's after all of the active treatment and all of that like heavy support, because when you're in active treatment, I feel like you feel like a lot of people are more aware of that, so they're just cheering you on, and then you ring that bell and it kind of everybody kind of simmers down, and you're left with all that like turmoil to figure out. It's something that I feel like we need to talk about a little bit more in the cancer world, because you could be hit with that and not realize it's going to happen. And so I'm glad you brought that up because I was there myself as well.
Yeah, and I'm super grateful. That's something that I heard from you too, for sure. Like that's something I've seen you talk about, and that was helpful for me to kind of know, like, oh, okay, this is where, it doesn't necessarily end through treatment. And what I've found is I think that like we're not, it seems to me like we're not really processing everything while we're going through treatment. I think we're kind of just like we built a bridge over it, and we're getting through and like surviving, and there's still just this like raging river underneath us. And we're like, don't look down. Like,
it's such a good way to describe it.
Yeah. Like you're going across this like rickety bridge and you're so focused on just surviving. And then like there's all this stuff under the surface, and it kind of pops up, like the emotions, and it's very, there's a lot of stuff that's there that you kind of you're just putting it to the side, and then all of a sudden you're done with treatment. And I think that's sometimes those things start really coming up.
No, it's not a great place to be in, and I think you have to really, there's so much work to be done mentally and even obviously physically, the healing part, but you know, though I was talking to somebody about the things not to say to a cancer patient, and I made a whole video on it. But one of the things I heard a lot is, are you back to normal? Or like, everything good now, kind of things like that. And, you know, right after you finish all of that stuff, like it is anything but normal. You don't even feel like yourself. You don't look like yourself for the most part. And it's a wild ride. So you finish radiation. Take us kind of back to what you've already done treatment wise. What was your cancer diagnosis, and then what were you doing for treatment until this point?
Well, first of all, uh, I had found a lump about 8 months before I realized it was really big and really scary. I was breastfeeding at the time, and I found like probably about the size, like size of a marble. And I went in for just a regular checkup with my midwife. I showed it to her. She was not concerned about it. She said, I think she probably said, keep an eye on it. Of course, I didn't. I just thought, oh, it's not anything. And then because I do jujitsu, like we have some, you don't necessarily notice when you get like bumps and bruises and things like that. So I had like bruising on my breast where the tumor was. Like there was like, it looked like a bruise. It hurt. And I thought, oh, I must have caught a knee or something, or, I just assumed there was an injury. And then that was kind of something I overlooked because of that. So I think that was, the tumor was really growing quickly. There was, discoloration, like firmness. I thought, oh, scar tissue or something.
Yeah.
So I had all these experiences. I was super tired every time. And this is something that I think I probably need to do like a Reddit post, because I don't know how many times I Googled fatigue before ovulation, because I felt sick right before ovulation, like dead tired, like that kind of tired before you come down with the flu. And I was like, something's wrong, something's wrong. And I Googled it over and over again. And nobody ever said, there's nothing out there that links that to breast cancer. I think that's my theory, is that's what it is. I don't have like confirmation about that. There's no research on that.
Yeah.
But that's where your estrogen peaks, and my cancer is 95% estrogen fed.
I had a similar experience with my period as well. I was a very regular woman. Like I could account for the dates that I was going to get my period. And the last few months prior to me being diagnosed, or actually prior to pregnancy, I had a longer cycle, which I even thought to myself, this is the weirdest thing. I thought I was pregnant a couple times because it was like lasting so long for me. And in hindsight, I'm just like, I wonder if that was something at play, because I also had, I think it was 95% estrogen as well. And
Yeah.
it definitely makes me ask that question too, how it affects your cycle and the way you normally, menstruate.
To me, it seems like there's a lot of issues with, like, I feel like just women's issues of like issues with our menstrual cycle get kind of swept under the rug. You see a lot of women with endometriosis that take, there's not a great way to diagnose endometriosis other than like to go in there surgically and see what's going on. And so women that I know that have had issues with endometriosis, like there is years and years of pain and issues,
Yeah.
and like, and there's just so much of this, oh yeah, you just push through, whatever, oh, just take on Midol. And I had very, very, very bad periods. So something was wrong with my system, my hormones, like
Right.
something was going on with my body, and I knew it. So when I realized like there was a very large lump about the size of a golf ball in my breast, and there was like some puckering, like swelling of the skin, that there was something going on with my nipple. Like I realized, I knew it was cancer immediately, just because of all the other stuff going on. As soon as I found that last March, I knew it was cancer. And I found it like 4 days before we left on our first family vacation, that we were able to have as we went to Hawaii. And I just knew, I think my husband was in denial. But I definitely made the best of that vacation. And then when I came back, there was some delay in getting diagnostic imaging. I think there's some backup from just like routine screenings through COVID. And so I was like a month out, even just to get imaging after I came back. So it was about 6 weeks from when I found it to when I was diagnosed. Um, and then after that was the staging. And I was diagnosed with stage 4, but I had one spot on my spine that looked like a lytic lesion. It lit up, and there was, some, like, basically looked like cancer in one of my vertebrae. And then I also had like my supraclavicular lymph nodes that I think a little, some on this side, one on this side, and then my mediastinal and hilar lymph nodes, like kind of deeper in my chest, lit up. So all of that stuff to stage 4 breast cancer, but because it was in such few places, they chose to go after it with what they call curative intent. So basically, the treatment that I got was the same as if I had stage 3 breast cancer. Now, I was like a little bit in denial because I've had back issues and I had an MRI in 2019. I kept saying, hey, like, look at the MRI. Could it be from something else? And I also had an upper respiratory infection like 2 weeks before that first PET scan. So I had both my surgeon, my surgical oncologist, and my medical oncologist. They diagnosed it as stage 4, and when I kept bringing it up, they're like, "No, I know you like want it to be something else. It's stage 4." Like they were, and I was just kind of holding on to hope. And then I finally, after I was done with chemo and surgery, I talked to my the radiation oncologist, and I said, "Hey, this, still like holding on to hope, like months and months later, I said, hey, could this be something else?" And he said, yes, it could be. So I'm kind of in a weird, like I'm holding on to the hope that it was stage 3. But I'm also prepared. I've lived with the stage 4 diagnosis. As far as treatment goes, at this point, it doesn't make any difference. So I had the ACT treatment. It's adriamycin cytoxin and Taxol. I did the dose-dense Taxol, and then which was super painful. I don't know if like
the Taxol.
It's nice to get it done quickly. I had pain, like nerve pain, like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, geez.
And I've come across you that have gone through the same thing, doing the 4 instead of the 12. So just to be
That's
aware,
intense.
I got through it with some pain medication and stuff. Yeah. But it was nice to just kind of get it done quicker. And then I had a single mastectomy without reconstruction. And I did another thing I was able to like kind of shorten the time on is I did 16 rounds of radiation instead of the 25 that they used to do. So there was recently a study that came out of China that they replicated up at the University of Utah. But I think my radiologist was actually, or my radiation oncologist, I don't know the differences. But I think he was involved in the study. Their study hasn't been published yet, but he felt comfortable doing 16 instead of the 25. So kind of got things somewhat fast tracked. And I just finished with that. So
That's just a lot. I mean, cancer period is a lot, and then you had to deal with the mental aspect of the diagnosis being kind of up. I mean, while they were saying stage 4, and then you got the okay from your radiation oncologist saying it's possible that it could be something else. I feel like that just opens so many other doors for your brain to go. So I could only imagine, your thoughts that you battle with. But I love that you want to try to just focus on the fact that the possibility of it being, a stage 3 diagnosis, because I think that is huge for going forward, like having that hope and maintaining that to just live your life the best that you can. There's never a really like clear answer, right? Like it's just you wish you had this like firm, like complete answer of what is this going on with my body.
And well, and something that I've learned too from like some of the groups that I've been a part of, I really appreciate the Facebook cancer support group. There's like some under 40 groups that I think are like really important. If you're under 40, like things are just a little bit different. We have young children. We have, we're like, it's really a tragedy when you're young. And I mean, cancer sucks for anybody, but when you're young and you're going through this, it's brutal. It's not
Yeah.
fair. And so I think we have like other women that we can relate with, and that's everything. So some, the stage 4 under 40 groups, there's a lot of hope there too. Stage 4 isn't the death sentence that it used to be. And, there's a lot of different treatments out there. There's new treatments coming out all the time
Yeah.
to like, it sounds morbid, but the goal is to prolong life. But really, it
Yeah.
can be like 20 years, 20
Yeah.
years, and then we're all part of the new wave of statistics too. So I think hope is everything. Whatever you can hold on to, whatever stories you can hold on to, don't go down the rabbit hole of like worst case scenario. Prepare yourself, like have that in mind, because I think when you like we want to take it, we want to appreciate the fact that we're alive today and really like live that blessing. And so I think awareness of worst case scenario is a benefit to your quality of life. But I think that you have to hold on to every little bit of hope.
Is there anything that you do to kind of, because I'm sure regardless of how much you're holding on to the hope, there's got to be, the negative thoughts and, the things that just creep in that could affect your mental health. Like, do you have anything that you do to kind of combat that, or things that you say to yourself that help you kind of get out of that negative space?
I think
Besides jujitsu?
I don't know. Yeah, jiu-jitsu was very helpful. I was able to train through chemo, and so just feeling alive, like anything you can do really to feel alive and feel a little bit like yourself when you're in the middle of the suck, I think is such a great tool to like get those parts of your identity like in bits and pieces, because you just don't feel like yourself when you're going through the treatment. As far as like the doom and gloom, and I am sure, well, I'm not sure, but I imagine this maybe doesn't work for a lot of people, but uh, I go to the worst case scenario and I just realize like it's gonna be okay. Like that, it's morbid, but I've had friends that like I lost a really good friend who was family to us. He was an uncle to my oldest son, and I see his wife and his kids are okay. They are like they will survive without us. The people that we love, they will survive. They'll go on. They'll move forward. And that sucks to think about, but it's going to be okay. Worst case scenario is going to be okay, and we're going to be
Yeah.
dead, so it doesn't matter, right? Like we're not going to be
Yeah.
suffering.
I understand
Yeah,
totally what you're getting, and that's very like a real, like true thought process. Going back to you having a lot of cancer in your family, how do you think that has impacted your experience in a helpful way, or even what kind of, and helpful in the sense of knowing about cancer? Because I feel like some people might be diagnosed and they've never dealt with cancer in their family, friends, and that is a whole it's a whole nother world. So knowing a little bit about it, maybe experiencing it while it's awful, and why do you have to continually deal with it? Do you think it has aided in any kind of your journey?
Yeah. Big time. I think like one thing that I think is really important to share. I'm just like I like natural remedies. Like I know you're the same. Like you
I
have
hear
your, like I'm just like, kind of crunchy, like not, I'd rather like eat
like
healthy, do all
granola-esque.
the like, yes, I am. I'm not somebody who's like, oh yeah, just like, pop a pill and whatever. Like I'm very, I've used medication like sparingly in my life. Um, I believe in like holistic approaches to health. Um, and so I want to say like and share for anybody out there who struggles with, these chemotherapy drugs and, all this like, big pharma stuff and, all like has this like gut reaction to, I had a lot of people, oh, I would never do chemo. I'm like, yeah, I get it. I understand, it's
Yeah.
scary. And I just remember like, first of all, seeing my parents go through it and just anecdotally, everyone I know who didn't do what was recommended is not alive today. Everyone I know who did is. So that's and at least 3 people I know personally
That's
and
huge.
others that I know of. Yeah. So yeah. That's
Yeah,
a
how do
big
you
thing for
not
me.
like how do you not base your opinions off of the direct impact that has been on you about those distinct factors? That has to be, very, it has to change how you think about it all.
Yeah, and um I had this moment before I did chemo. I was like, man, like this is hard. I'm gonna put this stuff in my body. And I shifted my mindset to think this is powerful medicine. Like I got away from any of the, oh, you're putting poison in your body or like this is powerful medicine. We are on the same team. I am putting my faith
Mm-hmm.
in the people behind this medicine, not the corporations, not the, the people behind it because there are great human beings that have dedicated their lives for very personal reasons to developing this stuff to fight cancer. And I believe in them. And I believe that like it's powerful medicine. There are side effects from it, but we're working together and I will do everything I can to heal and recover and be as healthy as I can afterwards. So if that
It
helps
was made to be
anybody,
life-saving,
yeah. Yeah.
so it's that delicate. It's not like your casual person just taking medication every day to aid a side effect. This is something that was created to save lives, and it's a drastic situation. It's not light. We obviously clearly have intense side effects, but I understand that it's hard to. I didn't want to. That was my worst fear in all of this. Was like, what was chemo going to be like? And then when I first was diagnosed, like, what do I need chemo? There's so much fear around it. Um, it's, I love your mindset about, this is working with me and it's not against you. This is going to help you. I think that is a huge shift that could really help dictate your infusion days.
Yeah, I had a really great team. I had a female surgeon and a female anesthesiologist, and I think I like this thought of like men with knives. I think of like surgeons and like this like brutal thing of like this vision of like men with knives cutting me open. And it's like so dramatic. But that like I had so much fear about the mastectomy. Like that was a really big thing in my head to be unconscious, so totally helpless, and to be at the mercy of somebody else like cutting me open and like digging stuff out of my body. That was a hard thing for me that I had a female surgeon who was just so calm and just like she had this very peaceful energy and very soft spoken and very matter of fact and a lot of empathy in how she talked and a lot of experience too. She was just an angel for me.
Were you looking for female surgeons, doctors, or is this just kind of how it happened?
It was just how it happened, but that was definitely something in my head. I think that if I don't remember that, you know how it is. Like in the beginning, everything's a blur.
Yeah.
It was definitely something in my head that I would have pushed for if I hadn't been given a female breast surgeon. And I think that Huntsman in particular understands how important that is, and I think they have several female surgeons that do the breast surgery up there.
That's really important to have somebody who can connect. I know not all doctors are made equal, and not, you can have a really good doctor and they not have good bedside manner or able to communicate. And I'm not discounting them. We all need good doctors, whether they could chat, like talk to you in the right way or not. But within the cancer realm, I think that is so huge to have somebody who could empathize and take care of you in a gentle way and just make you feel safe, aside from the fact that they have to treat you clinically. So I love that you were able to have that, because that changes so much.
Yeah. My medical oncologist, I think, he's a character. He's maybe not one of those that I connected with right away. But I do think he's very good at what he does, and his PA is phenomenal. So that made a big difference, because there was a lot of times that I saw her as I was going through chemo. Yeah, I think he's one of those that's really good at what he does, and maybe, I don't know, just not the most personable, like aware personality.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. And sometimes it's hard to discern, how somebody's acting versus like their medical care. So I'm glad that you're able to see that through, because it's not easy at all. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to like advocate for your part of your treatment at all, like where there was any confusion? Because I know that happens a lot, where there's just portions of treatment that you don't feel comfortable with, or even just how it's going. Was there anything like that for you?
Yeah, there were a couple of things that I caught, and I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Like oh gosh, I can't remember right now. But there was a couple of little things where I questioned it, and they were glad that I questioned what was going on, because that people are busy and there's a lot going on. And so I think it is really important to have, yourself or your caregiver really paying attention, because chemo messes with your head too. Like chemo brain is really hard. I still feel like I'm struggling with it. I'm not great at remembering things. I had a seroma, which can happen when you have lymph nodes removed in your armpit. That's just like a complication that can happen from a mastectomy. But it got infected, which is a risk of like draining the seroma. So the seroma is super painful anyway. It's just a collection of fluid, but it's like really protein rich fluid. So bacteria love to colonize. Like it's a lot of food for bacteria. And every time you stick a needle in to get the fluid out, you're risking introducing bacteria into there. So I had the risk was there, and I got that problem. And so then I had an infection and an abscess, and had to have that taken care of, like cut open, and like the wound packing. And so that was frustrating. I mean, any complications, I think that you have can be really frustrating, really draining. And you just kind of have to just pick one foot up and put it down in front of the other one and keep moving forward. And my sister-in-law was my angel when it comes to knowing exactly what to say. You were saying how like people just say the wrong thing all the time to cancer patients. But my niece has lupus, and she also is a cancer survivor, and she has a lot of, she's waiting for the ability to have a kidney transplant just to be a certain amount of time post cancer in order to even be eligible for a kidney transplant. So she's like limping along on the edge of dialysis right now, and it's been a long, long haul for them.
How old is she?
She's 17 now, 16. Oh my gosh, I think she's 17. And she was, I want to say like 11 when she was first diagnosed with lupus. It destroyed her kidneys. She went through hell with that. But my sister-in-law, as her caregiver, she has been through all of it with her. And so she knows what to say to me when I'm having a hard time. And so throughout this whole thing, I mean, just like having somebody there who knows how it feels and how much it sucks, and that's been huge for me.
I'm glad that you have that because a lot of people, it's hard for them to find or have somebody that just like gets it even on a different, from a different lens. Like that is, I feel for her that she's had to experience that with her daughter. That is just heartbreaking. And, sometimes I don't know about you, but I feel like, I've said this multiple times, like I'd rather it be me than my kids or anything, anybody else, because you just like don't want that for anybody else, so being a mother, I could only imagine what she's been through, and it's amazing that she's still able to show up for you in that way. So that's a beautiful thing for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if you felt that way too. Like for me, it's healing to help other people.
Yeah, that's all I feel like. I don't know if it's like a healing thing, it's part of the healing process, but I it's almost like I want to, I saw all those gaps, right? Like you see all the things that you felt you needed, or you see all the holes, whether it's in treatment and how you were treated, or all of these things. But, and it's like nobody knows. So you almost want to, or I personally, I want to almost fill those gaps and fill those holes, and try to do something to help somebody who else was in that dark place, So I'm sure if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, all the things like I wish that I would have heard from somebody else. I want to share those.
Is there anything that you would recommend if somebody was listening to this and they were a caregiver, or a friend or family member, whatever it is, that you could kind of give them a little advice from your perspective, from your experience, that would be beneficial to say if maybe they don't know how to approach somebody with cancer?
I think just ask. I think you really have to, like when you're empathizing with somebody, get the information on how they're doing, because like there's days you're okay, and if people come to you with a lot of like negativity because they assume, they're trying to empathize with you, and they're saying, oh man, this must be so hard, you must be having such a hard time right now. It's not always like that. Like there's days you're good, you have good days. Like I look back at this year that I still had a great year with like really beautiful moments in the middle of all this shit that I had to go through. And so don't just assume like, oh, it's so terrible, because then you're bringing the energy down. Just like really truly ask, hey, how's it going? How are you feeling today? How how can I support you today is, I don't know, like everybody's so different because there's people, for me, it was helpful to share. And I think, it seems like you're the same, like it's helpful to share what's going on and in the hopes of like helping somebody else out. Also, a lot of women that they don't want anybody to know. It's a very private thing for them. Their health is very private. And there's, for me as a jujitsu player, like I'm like, I like to like to fight. Like fighting resonates with me. Like I am a fighter, and there are a
You
lot
want
of
to push
people.
back?
The fighting language, yeah, but like the language to say, oh, you're a fighter, you're a warrior, that doesn't resonate with them. They don't like the idea of being a fighter. They don't feel like a fighter. They're just surviving. And so I think it's really important to understand, like, don't make assumptions and just ask, like, how people feel, what they think, like, try to get to know what people want and need from you as a friend or caregiver or family member.
I think that's really important, is to kind of meet the person where they're at. And if you don't know where they're at, communicate, even express, I do not know what to say, but I want to know how you're feeling. Or, I think there's ways to open the door if you don't know how. But definitely agree with the just simply, open that communication. If they want to take it, they will, and if they don't, they don't. But you're right, everybody is so different in how they heal, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this and bring you on and talk about everybody's different stories, because it's so unique. While we have so much in common, we have breast cancer treatment and all those things, my and your experiences are completely different just because of who we are. And I think that part is important, because from like a bird's eye view, people see, you get diagnosed, you get treatment, and then you're all good. Or until, what I mean, there's like a very cliche way to envision cancer. And it's just not the reality. And so I think it's important to level for sure with people. So we got you up to where you are now in terms of finishing radiation. What is next for you in terms of your treatment?
Meet with the medical oncologist in a couple of weeks. As far as I know, what is typical with a stage 4 diagnosis, even with like this curative intent, is that you still have to do PET scans every few months. But that decision will be up to the medical oncologist. I think there's one more medication type that they will put me on. There'll probably be a little bit of kind of trial and error. Like some people have terrible side effects and have to adjust medications. There's multiple options for it. I'm on letrozole right now, which is a aromatase inhibitor. So basically just keep like estrogen from working in my body, I think is how it works. And then I also
It blocks
have
the
my ovaries shut
conversion
down.
from androgens to estrogens.
Okay, cool. And then I have a 4-week. Every 4 weeks, I get a little implant injected that shuts down my ovaries. So that's what I'm doing right now. And then the next one will be, and this is what they talked about like back in the beginning, just kind of, hey, these are all the steps. So there's a CDK4/6 inhibitor, is the like next type of medication that I will be on long term, most likely. So that's kind of what I'm anticipating, but we'll see. I don't know if there'll be like another PET scan sometime soon to see, how things work with like radiation, and surgery and stuff like that. But yeah, so I'm still kind of in a little bit of an unknown right now until I meet with the medical oncologist again.
Do you have goals for life right now? Like obviously you have your cancer goals, taking medication and, keeping that far at bay. But in terms now that you are done with radiation, and you're starting to heal, obviously, with your body, what are you looking forward to? Like, what are your goals now that you've kind of passed this specific point in your treatment?
Yeah, that's a really hard question because that's the thing that I'm like struggling with the most right now is, it's like gone from, am I going to see my kids grow up to like, what do I want to be when I grow up? Because I stopped working when I had that stage 4 diagnosis. It was like, I already made that decision before I got the results back from the PET scan was if it's stage 4, I'm not going to work because I want to spend as much time with my kids as possible. So I stopped working. I was managing a jiu-jitsu program. I'm still like involved. It was something that was really important to me for several years. Kind of like my baby, I was part of it from the very beginning. So that was hard to let go of. But now I don't know. Like I have all these options. I feel like I've gone through this rebirth in my life, and now I'm just kind of out in outer space thinking like, okay, what now? I know that I know I don't have any time for BS, like my bullshit meter, my bullshit tolerance is like gone. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to do anything. Yeah, I don't want to do anything I don't want to do. I'm not going to do anything I don't want to do. Like if it's not I don't know if I probably shouldn't swear on here. If it's not a F yes, it's a hell no. So that's where I'm at. I just I am going to take some time to get caught up on all the things that really fell behind. I'm working with a mindset coach who works with jiu-jitsu athletes. I don't know if you've heard of Diggy Yoon. She's amazing. But she's like, therapy for some reason hasn't clicked with me when I tried therapy. But coaching just feels more kind of, I don't know, like it just resonates with me better, like the coaching relationship. So I'm working with her on like just kind of figuring out how to shift my mindset and start to set goals again. And maybe be able to answer that question sometime in the near future. But really, I want to just enjoy my life and time with my kids.
I think that is perfectly like a great answer I think it's important for people to know that it's okay to just not know what to do after all of this. I think that there is this like expectation sometimes after you finish to want to go travel and live your life like to the fullest and accomplish all of your dreams that you never went for prior and all of these, magical things. But I think it's okay to live in that gray area and like rebuild. I think it's so important to kind of take it slow and really start to just dive deep into who you are and what you want slowly. And it doesn't have to be this like, all or nothing thing. I think it's required to be in this like, I don't know phase, in order to figure it out. So I think that is a good place to start at, like you're aware of where you are, you realize that you have things that you want to work on, and that's it, take one step at a time. And I think that is great. And but I would love to hear when you do have more answers as to what you want to accomplish. But now your coach, you said she's a jiu-jitsu coach, like she's a jiu-jitsu mindset coach.
Well, she's a mindset coach in general, but her specialty is working with athletes and in particular jujitsu athletes. That's just something that she's familiar with. She's worked with some friends of mine. A lot of like high level competitors and things like that. And so she really understands that just kind of, the push through, like no days off kind of attitude, I guess you see with athletes sometimes, and understands the value of like, sometimes that's not the answer. Like you gotta slow down and make things a little bit easier. And she has some experience with loved ones with cancer too. So that's been just, I think, good to have a little bit of knowledge of just like who I am as a jujitsu athlete, and also like what it's like to go through the process of cancer.
Yeah, that sounds awesome to have that kind of support. I think therapy is awesome, but if sometimes it's not for you, and the fact that you found something kind of like replace that portion for your mental health as well as goal oriented conversations, I think that's amazing. I love that you're doing that. um, Speaking of jujitsu, I know you had mentioned like training throughout chemotherapy, which is amazing. You're amazing. um, I want you to talk about that a little bit, and even just jujitsu in general. I want to know, your I've seen that you've competed a little bit, but tell me more about like your jujitsu life. Like I want to know all about it.
Well, I mean, I got into it just because I had an interest in like the self-defense stuff. And actually, the thing that sold it for me was a friend of mine invited me and my husband at the time out to watch a tournament just to see what it was all about. And there was all the kids competing. And I just remember seeing like the first match, and the kid who lost just started bawling. And the kid who won was like holding him and comforting him. And I just thought, oh, that's really
Good
cool.
kid.
Like, that's unexpected. I guess I hadn't seen that type of environment in like competition, and that really made me even more interested in it because I am not necessarily, I mean, I'm a competitive person, but I'm also a very compassionate person. And so I'm like somebody who is genuinely stoked if somebody beats me because I know what I brought to the table. And if they beat me, then like I'm stoked for them because they brought something better. And so, yeah, that's something that I love about jujitsu. I have so many friends, like very, very close friends, like to the level of like family to me, people I love very dearly, that I met for the first time taking hands in front of a ref. And so like my community of women in jiu-jitsu has been just incredible. Yeah, I just started kind of like interested in self-defense. My friend Tom was teaching. My ex-husband is military, and we were living out in Monterey. He was going through a language school out there, and my friend Tom, who's a friend of my ex-husband, he was doing it was like a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu club at the gym on Post, and I just decided to stop by with all these like 19-year-old Marine kids that were like just trying to kill each other, and I jumped in there and tried it. I loved it. Um, and I was hooked on it. It was kind of my coping mechanism when my mom was going through her cancer treatment, and then I was going through a divorce and kind of a really hard year of my life, and I trained like an unhealthy amount my first year of jiu-jitsu, and then just made a lot of really great friends and got to know a lot of really wonderful people. And so it's also just been like a big social need met, I guess, like a family. And I love to compete. I think it's really fun because I'm 5'11". I'm typically heavyweight division, which is I don't know, not that heavy. Like I'm like 175 pounds. So I'm like the size of an average man, but it's like the women's heavyweight division. um, so I don't necessarily get to meet a lot of women my size. There's a few really amazing female competitors here in Utah that are my size that compete at the top level, like one in particular that's just phenomenal. Um, so I'm grateful for that. But I do have some women my size that are local, but it's just you don't get to roll with a lot of women your size when you're kind of at the bigger end of
Yeah.
the weight division. And so I love going to the big tournaments and I get like rounds with these like amazing women that are my size and age and so um, yeah, I mean I'd love to get back to competing. We'll see if that's in the cards for me, but it would be really cool to make that come back.
I'm sure. Yeah. I think for those of you listening, getting, Molly's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, and that is a huge accomplishment. Obviously you are a diehard, you were there every day with all of that going on in your life. But I want people to understand like the mental fortitude it takes to get to that level. And I think that really just shows, life was setting you up. Life was setting you up to deal with some stuff. And, while obviously you don't want that and no one wants that for you, but, you are a badass human. And I think you should know that, and everybody here should know that because it is, that's a huge feat in of itself amongst everything else that you've dealt with.
Well, I also just want to say though, I mean, like not take it away from the the strength and things that I've been through, but I always just like to say, as a woman, as like I'm not like some special person. Like I'm not like I am just a human being, and there's nothing about like me that makes it so that I can do the things that I can do. Like I've been involved in like doing construction. I grew up doing construction. I'm a carpenter with like 20 something years experience. I've done, worked in the male dominated field. I've done jujitsu. I've done these things that maybe aren't as common among women. And I just always like to say, like, it's not because I'm like special or unique. Like every single one of you is capable of doing these things, is capable of getting through cancer, is capable of like all of this stuff. I'm just a human being. And I think that's important. Like, not trying to like take away from what I've been through and what I've accomplished, but I think that's important to say that there's nothing special about me. I'm just a person and you can do it too.
Well, I appreciate the sentiment, but you are amazing. But that doesn't mean that you're not also just, at the same, on the same playing field as everybody else that is going through situations like this. I completely understand what you're saying because, I heard that a lot myself, and I didn't, that is not the person that I resonated with when going through treatment. Like I am just somebody who's surviving. I'm just somebody who's trying to just make it through. So I completely get what you're saying, where it's not like, you're this like monster human just like powering through treatment, you know.
Yeah.
But I think it just shows to your character a lot. So, and I appreciate that, especially for women too. It's not easy. It's not easy. I mean, you've clearly been in male dominated situations a lot in your life. And even in jujitsu, it's not easy as a woman to make it that far too. There's, it's growing, but it's definitely, still like women are on the lesser side. So I think it's just an awesome accomplishment. Now, is there anything that you think that you'd want to say to somebody who's just starting treatment, or something you wish you kind of could have told yourself in the beginning of it all?
You will get through it. It's just there is another side to it, and you just have to slog through it. You can feel anything you need to feel, but there's no shortcut, there's no easy way. You just have to slog through the mud. You got to pull your foot up out of it and plant it down in front of the other one. And you can't, it really, it's such a platitude, I guess, oh, one day at a time. You literally have to take it one day at a time. You have to. It's just this moment, this day, this hour, this minute. You just have to get through it, and you're gonna be okay. Everything is gonna be okay. It is what it is. What do you have control over? All the the Stoic philosophy stuff, I think, is really valuable. Even just there's a lot of Stoic philosophy that's about, look at the worst case scenario and really appreciate, envision the worst case scenario, because that's going to give you gratitude for what you have right now. That you can make it hard. You can make life as hard as you want. And sometimes it's a good tool to really look at people who are living life with a lot more things stacked against them. And if you have access to medical care, you are golden. Because there's a lot of people who are suffering and struggling. Their children are dying in front of them, in their arms, in the world today. And you have to remember that. You have to recognize that you have it so good. And that doesn't mean you can't feel bad and sad and angry and all those things. You feel all that stuff. You have a right to feel those feelings. But remember that you have so much going for you. If you wake up in the morning and you get to see the people that you love, and just don't suffer more than you have to, because it sucks.
Yes, do not suffer more than you have to. Well, Molly, I really appreciate your time. You have some amazing insight. And, if anybody wants to talk to you, is there any place that they could find you or reach out to you?
I mean, I guess Instagram, I think, is the easiest. I don't even remember what my Instagram handle is.
I'll put everything down in the description for you, to reach out.
Yeah, if anybody has questions or whatever, I'm especially people who are going through breast cancer, I'm so down to give my help and support in any way I can.
Yeah, I think you do an amazing job at sharing your story on your Instagram. I think, it's really good for those who are experiencing it to see the realness that you post. So I really appreciate that. And I think it's really good for the cancer community. So thank you for that. But yes, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. It's so great to talk with you.